I just want to thank everybody for being here. For our audience, though, just so you know, we were live just a couple of days ago. If you weren't there, we have an awesome YouTube port of our conversations on predictions. I'm proud to say we got a decent chunk right. Granted, we did not get into leaks or spoilers, and we are not going to be leaks today. We're not going to be talking about leaks today. But I'm also really excited to have this conversation because this is one of the Pokemon days that I am most excited about. But before we get into that, one of the things that I want to do is introduce our cast because we have an amazing cast with us today. Um, as we go, obviously, I am Rhodehawk, your humble host, and I am excited to be talking about the 30th anniversary Pokemon Day Presents. I'm going to introduce everybody, and what I'm going to ask you to do for our intro question is tell us who you are, what you do. But then our intro question is which reveal most caught you off guard in the presents, and I'm going to start with Death. Please let us know who you are, what you do, and what caught you most off guard.
I am MAGNEDETH, former editor-in-chief of Bulbapedia. What I do these days, honestly, not as much as I probably should or want to, but I'm a very busy guy. I stream on my own channel, and I help out with some back-end stuff here on the site. And what was most surprising to me, honestly, it was Winds and Waves. I was kind of expecting them to make an announcement, but also not expecting them to make an announcement. So I guess I'll narrow it down and say that my biggest surprise was it being a 2027 release, which we will talk about later in the podcast.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Ghost, can you remind everybody who you are, what you do, and what caught you most off guard today during the presents?
Well, yeah, hello, I'm Ghost Diplocalus. I am a super moderator at Bulbagarden. And what surprised me the most, well, also Winston Waves, but more specifically the fact that we got like actual artwork reveal for the starters and the player characters, which for for a couple generations now, we took a while to get official art of everything. So like this was a surprise, but in a very good way, honestly.
I'm not gonna lie. I said this before we started, but yeah, they moved fast, and I have to say I love the artwork. It is really well done. And it's also really cool. I'll get into this here in a second with my surprise. But I also want to highlight everybody today. Our regular producer, Caps, is not going to be here today just because Caps is also an incredibly busy person. But we do have Abby, who is serving as backup producer, and it's going to be another awesome cast. But Abby, can you remind everybody who you are, what you do, and what was the thing that most caught you off guard?
Yeah, so I'm Abby. I am one of our moderators over on the Discord, as well as one of our streamers right here on the Twitch channel. Um, Probably the biggest thing that caught me off guard today. Um, I was really, I don't know if there was any universe where I would have been prepared for the first announcement to be replica Game Boy that plays the Gen 1 music tracks. Like that just threw me off so bad. I'll give an honorable mention also to the Kanto legendary birds being playable in Unite, which would have been more surprising if they hadn't officially announced it like a week ago.
Yeah, that is fair. I might be a shill, and I'm not going to deny it realistically, but I did go out on the Pokemon website and buy that replica Game Boy device. I am an OG Pokemon player, and that hit way too much nostalgia for me not to do that. Um, but again, I'm Roadhawk. I'm your host. I'm also on the YouTube channel with Pokemon Master Shorts. I do want to say, I think the thing that caught me most off guard, and I'm going to be honest, I was expecting winds and waves. I think, like most of us it was kind of impossible to avoid spoilers in one way or another if you were on social media, and it was as well as leaks. I should probably just call them leaks. But I think the thing that caught me off guard, and I just want to highlight this, is the thing that caught me off guard was mostly the starters. I had fought tooth and nail to not see any artwork or get any ideas. And Death, I know you and I are probably going to strongly disagree on this based on previous conversations, but I love the starters. That is partly due to the fact that they smack of Alola starters to me, and I love Alola, and the fact that we got a grass bird, a little sassy gecko, and a floofy boy really makes me think of Alola, and I hope we get some kind of tie to Alola in one way or another, because longtime viewers know I love Alola. It's one of my all-time favorite Pokemon regions. The honorable mention that I will get, and I was not expecting this whatsoever, and I need to pull up their names because there's a 99% chance that I'm going to mess it up even with it in front of me. But Mr. Windy Chew and Miss Wavy Chew I was not expecting the Pikachu, and I was not expecting them to be important. In all honesty, I thought they were going to be like temporary joke or introduction characters, but the fact that they're supposed to be at least somewhat important to the plot really threw me off. And so
We'll talk about the starters later in this podcast.
Oh yeah, no, we will definitely be talking about the starters. I'm gonna gush, and I'm gonna get into things. So really quickly here, there was a ton revealed, and I think for a lot of people it wasn't what we were expecting. But getting into that, I know that we have a lot to talk about, and getting into things in particular, mobile games. People know here who watch this cast, who listen, even the cast knows I love mobile games, and I want to give a special shout out. I know it wasn't necessarily planned, and I'm going to work backwards in our questions. But we got 1996 Red and Pikachu, which if you haven't scouted him yet, he is busted in Pokemon Masters. Ridiculously good unit.
I do have to say about that. I wish the Pikachu was watercolor and also the old chubby design, because Fat Pikachu is best Pikachu.
True.
I'm not gonna lie. When I saw Red's sprite, I was like, oh my gosh, almost this whole game should look like this. The shading, the colors. He honestly looks like that one Pokemon game where someone went back and did like modern Pokemon games. It was a ROM hack, or at least a trailer. He did like the whole thing in like 1996, and it was style, but it had like 3D graphics, and that's what Red looks like to me. But yeah, it honestly, I'm not gonna lie. I really think it should have been Chunky Chew, especially because I think Japan got like a re-release of the 1996 one, and it almost looked more like the Wind and Waves Pikachu to me than it did regular Pikachu. And I might be the only one who thinks that, but I don't know. Did anyone else think that?
Well, to be honest, I didn't really notice that. Maybe it is, and I just didn't notice.
I could be hallucinating as well. Might be also a little Mandela effect because I just saw the trailer before I played the game. Getting into that though, really quickly, I know we had a couple people who really wanted to highlight like Pokemon Unite with the specifically that there are 3-player playable Pokemon. Moltres, Articuno, Zapdos, that should not have been as hard as it was for me to remember. But we're also getting the Gen 2 starters. introduced into the game, which I think is pretty cool. Ghost, I know that you have some interest in this conversation, and I know Abby, you do too. And I'm gonna go to Ghost first, just to get your input, and then we can jump in as we want. Ghost, what do you think of this?
Well, I think I think it's really cool. It might also be a sign that maybe every starter that isn't already present in Unite is going to be steadily added, into the game, over the course of the of this year. I think. I mean, maybe it's just wishful thinking of mine, but that's kind of the vibe I'm getting. I'm also going to go ahead and make a guess of what class the stars are going to have. Meganium's probably going to be either a defender or a supporter. Or alligators, gives me the all rounder vibes, and Typhlosion's going to be an attacker. Those are my guesses.
Respect those. I don't play Pokemon Unite, but I will trust your expertise.
No, I don't have expertise either. I like to watch other people play, but I don't play myself.
I respect it even more. I love it.
Yeah, so I guess my thoughts. So, like I said, the legendary birds had been announced in along with a bunch of the other updates coming. I'm not going to get into the whole recent Unite update shenanigans, but there's been a lot of very strange stuff that's been happening with that game recently. But just focusing on the playable characters right now, the biggest thing for me is the fact that they're actually bringing legendary birds, since they were formerly the big bosses of the original maps. And so, it had been kind of, I guess, expected that because they were in this like major NPC role, that they wouldn't be playable. And now they are, which is super cool. But I find it way more interesting because of the potential implications, which means that we could eventually see the Reggies become playable, which would be incredible. I mean, the Reggies are some of my favorite Pokemon, period. Registeel is probably in my top 10, top 5, honestly. And so I'm really hopeful that that becomes the case, because ever since the game was announced, I thought they would have been very, very cool, playable characters in that game. There's, despite them all sharing that kind of golem build, there's a lot of sort of variety in what they are, what they could potentially bring to the table. I mean, especially like Regieleki as another speedster would be awesome. So Registeel is a defender, Drago maybe more all-rounder. Any of that stuff I think would be awesome. So that's the biggest thing for me, is the implication that those could eventually change up, as well as obviously like Groudon, Kyogre, Rayquaza, who are also some of the major boss enemies in the newer maps. The Johto starters are cool. That wasn't announced ahead of time, so that is nice. But yeah, the biggest thing is just the fact that we got these NPC characters transferred over to playable status, and what that could potentially mean for future inclusions.
So this is not the purpose of the cast, but I know we don't always have you on, Abby, and I'd like to know, if we got the Reggies, what would their roles be?
All right, let's try to run down the whole thing. Steel and Rock, I struggle to see them as anything other than defenders. I know they technically have, like, one is more special defense, one's more physical defense, but they both seem very physical to me. I could see Ice as an all-rounder, and then I see Drago as attacker and Aleki as speedster. Regigigas, I don't know where that fits in, honestly. That feels a little messy to me. But that's kind of my general thought. It, like I said, it is hard because they all kind of, especially the original 3, kind of focus on those big defenses, and you don't want to make them all the same class. But I definitely think, especially with the Gen 8 Reggies, they could mix it up a little more.
I could again easily talk about this for a while, but I also want to highlight the Pokemon Go 10th anniversary things. And I honestly, I am not a big Pokemon Go fan. I used to be avid. I would pay attention to it. I would play it. I was like my obsession. And then Pokemon Masters happened, and that went, Pokemon went away. But Ghost, I imagine you probably have more insight on me on this. But do you have any thoughts on like Pokemon Go's 10th anniversary and how it could play into the 30th anniversary?
To be honest, I don't really play Pokemon Go. Honestly, my current theory regarding that though is that I think it's going to be like you see. I mean, this is related to a different game, but you see how there was a new form revealed in Pokopia. I feel that Pokemon Go is probably going to be like the bridge that brings those Pokopia forms into other games. They did it with Meltan and Melmetal, so I feel like there could be something similar there too.
Absolutely. Um, Really quickly, I do want to go over a couple things to be my Pokemon Masters advocate on this chat that I always am. I do also want to highlight that we did have, other than for those wondering what might be on Pokemon Masters, we did also have Florian, and my goodness, I can never remember the Paldea main character names. Um, it's not Florian and Floragato. Anyways, we had the two main
No,
characters.
Floragado's is the second stage of Sprigatito.
I believe it's
It
Florian and
absolutely is, and
Juliana.
it's wild to me that that's more memorable than the main characters. But I can't remember the other main character's name. I don't know. Does anybody remember the other main character's name?
Juliana. Her
Thank
name's
you.
Juliana.
We are going to be getting a couple really cool sync pairs involving them in the next couple of days. And as we do, I don't want to spoil anything for those of you who really want to be in the dark of that. I am going to say, if they continue the trend of these Pokemon Masters 6.5 anniversary sync pairs, it's going to be wild because 1996 Red and Pikachu have, I just did their sync grid at 3 out of 5, and my goodness, is it broken. Like, brief overview, many of the tiles are under 5 out of whatever needed to do the sync grid. And that's wild to me. I think I had like 66 sync orb options. He is going to be an absolute beast. I honestly think that it might have been competition for Ash, who was revealed, I think, last year or a couple of years ago, who also had a ridiculous sync grid. That being said, Death, I do have a comment that I think is probably going to make you very happy. And that is, I am sick of seeing Pikachu sync pairs in Pokemon Masters. It's probably almost as gratuitous as Charizard sync pairs. And as much as I love the 1996 Red and Pikachu, I'm kind of bummed we got more Red. I wish it was something else. But it's anniversary. That's almost a tradition in Pokemon Masters at this point. Does anyone have any other thoughts on that before we move on to our next set of questions?
The only thing I'll add is that I am both surprised and unsurprised they didn't go harder with Pokemon Go. I also used to be a big Pokemon Go fan, but I stopped playing because I found the game too distracting in my everyday life, which might sound a little bit weird, but I just couldn't help myself sometimes just pulling the phone and spinning stops or catching stuff. And I eventually got to the point I was like, no, this is too distracting. I'm gonna stop playing. And I feel like the popularity of Pokemon Go has really fallen off over the past year plus. So I am not surprised they're doing stuff in it, but I'm also not surprised they're not going harder in it because I think that the general numbers of Pokemon Go are falling off a little bit.
I think that's really valid, and I'm not going to get into why, but I think the reputation in Pokemon Go has also been hit. Um, and additionally, I think it's also I think they're keeping it going because it's kind of their mainstay mobile game now. Not gonna lie.
If
But
it's
yeah,
making money, it'll stay.
yep, absolutely, yeah. And I mean, it's almost synonymous with Pokemon. It's TCG Pocket's gonna blow it out of the water, I believe. But getting into something, and I think there's so much worth here. Where we're talking about the side games. We got Pokemon XD, Gale of Darkness, which I was not expecting them to drop that first. But additionally, I know that Ghost on the last cast, you had joined me in being really excited for the Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness. And just to jump in, are you excited and are you going to be playing this avidly like I am?
Yes, 100%. That was my childhood. I am really excited. Like, it's kind of surprising though that they released these before Pokemon Colosseum, but like I said in the last in the last stream, I played that one before Colosseum too, so I guess history just repeated itself.
I just to add to that, I almost wonder if they've released it first because it's the quote unquote easier version. Um,
Yeah,
you have
I
more.
think so. Like Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness had like has more quality of life features
Mhm.
that are more helpful for gameplay. Like in Colosseum, for example, you cannot save whenever and wherever you want. You have to go to a PC. And in Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness, it works like any other game where you can save right where you decide to stop. But I do think there might be another reason why Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness was released first. And that reason I think is Shadow Lugia. Because you see, the new Pokemon games for Gen 10 are going to be called Wind and Waves. And what is another Pokemon that is connected to those very elements? It's Lugia. So
That's
You might be
I,
onto
oh my
something.
gosh. Go ahead.
Oh, well, I was just saying. I think that's a really good point. I personally think it is unlikely that we will see Shadow Lugia in some future content, but I would like to. And um, I have here's a very very quick side comment is I was supposed to stream XD for Bulbagarden, but then they announced it on the Switch. So I went from one of the only people that could possibly stream XD for Bulbagarden, and now like anybody with a Switch can stream XD for Bulbagarden. So my niche got taken there, which is a shame because I would like to play it again. I haven't played it in a long time. I still have my original GameCube copy though, so I don't really. This doesn't do much for me personally, but I'm very glad that it's out there for more people to play because it's a very unique game that I think is worth playing. I don't think Colosseum is very good, personally. Sorry to make some people angry out there. I do think XD is just better in every single possible way. So I'm not too upset about Colosseum not being there, except game preservation. So I would like to see it eventually, but I don't think I would play it myself.
So just to add to that, and we all kind of touched on this a bit. Yeah, Coliseum XT is much better. It's crafted differently. It's easier, but it's still. I want to clarify for the new people who didn't listen a couple days ago. When we say it's easier than Coliseum, it's still brutal. Like this is not somebody who has grown up only on like the more recent generation saying it's hard. It is Coliseum and Coliseum XD are some of the hardest Pokemon games in my opinion, especially because you are so limited on Pokemon. But I think that's where its charm comes from. It is a game that will cause you to rage quit But it's also a game that draws you in and pulls you in because I think it has one of the most mature storylines in Pokemon. And I also think it has a lot of value. This also comes from someone who played, oh my gosh, it was Pokemon Stadium when the Nintendo Switch came out. And I think there's so much value to this kind of thing, like Death said, of games coming out in this way. Um, I still haven't played Pokemon Fire Red, Leaf Green in it today because I just have not had time, but I'm looking forward to doing that. And I know one of the primary complaints people have is it doesn't have the quality of life features, which
Which
Death
people are wrong.
so expertly said. But I do also want to highlight that speaking of Coliseum and battles, unless I interrupted anyone, I think I might have. Was that the case?
I was just making a comment when you mentioned
Oh,
fire. I
I
thought I might have misunderstood when you said Fire Red Leaf Green, and you said quality of life. And I'm like Fire Red Leaf Green are fully playable, and anybody who's complaining about it is just wrong. That's just my opinion.
So,
I
oh,
was
go
also
ahead,
going to
Ghost.
say about Pokemon Colosseum and Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness is that because of their limited roster, you also are kind of forced to use some Pokemon that you might have not overlooked in other games, and you gain a really big appreciation for them.
That is very true. Both of those comments are true. I think Death, it is not my goal to completely contrast you this entire cast. Um, what and I won't because of that. I'm going to get into a few things. I'm also not here to rile up the audience entirely, only a little bit, you know. Um, but getting into things, I did also really, even if it's briefly, I know we got actual information on Pokemon Champions. And I did want to start off with Ghost, just because I think it was the cast on Wednesday where you were talking about champions. Is that right?
Um, yeah, I think we mentioned something about champions. I mean, this trailer was more or less pretty much what I was expecting to see. I wasn't, I wasn't really, I didn't really have like, I didn't really have much of a, much of a hope for it. But and what we saw of the trailer, seems to be pretty much more of what we already knew. There's really not a whole lot to say. Like it was very fun though. Like I like the whole wrestling motif that they gave it.
I do agree. I kind of like the world champion aspect of it. But I can step back. I've been talking a lot today, partly because I'm so excited to be here and discuss this. Does anybody else have thoughts on champions?
Yeah, I am like squarely not in the target demographic for this game. I've never really cared that much about the battling and all of that. But it is like an interesting like concept to have this official like battle simulator. I am just very confused by the strategy that they're using to promote it. Like even today, like this was the big like pre-release, like the final pre-release trailer, and we got like basically no actual information. It was all just like more cool visuals, and then all the actual info was just dumped on the website after. And like they're putting it out in April, but then they're expecting everyone to use it for Worlds like 3 months later. Like it just feels all very it just feels like a very strange release method, even if I think the game itself seems relatively interesting. Just the way they're going about marketing and putting this out feels very strange to me.
I agree with
Yeah,
that.
absolutely.
Yeah, I wasn't going to say too much on it because I don't think there is much to say on it because I think that how they've been rolling this out has been painfully slow. when it's pretty clear people want to see and know more about it, and they just keep showing us fancy graphics and battles, but not actually how it works, like at all. So I still think the concept is interesting. Still have no idea what they're actually trying to do with it, to be honest.
Yeah, honestly, like if I were to make a guess on why they're being so secretive about it, is because there might be a lot of footage with whatever with Gen 10's gimmick on it, and they want to hide it as much as possible.
That's a good
So
point.
maybe that's why.
Yeah, I think the only thing I'll add to this, and I do think it's strange. Well, there's a couple things. If you weren't here on the cast on Wednesday, we did a big hope for Pokemon Champions was that there would be a good academic side to Pokemon Champions, offering guidance and like tutorials for those who want to get into competitive Pokemon. I know that I myself asked for like like step by step, this is how you build teams. I know Caps had said, like how to build teams based on previous worlds teams, how to break down Pokemon IVs, all of that. Um, the only thing I'll add to that is I'm almost wondering if they played it a little bit closer to the chest just because of the amount of leaks and and I'm not going to go into what the leaks were. I'm not going to go into why they exist. I'm just going to say I think that, like many gaming companies, they might be trying to counteract the amount in which that is happening. And I wonder if they are playing it so close because they are trying to preemptively plan for something. Um, I don't know if that's a valid claim. I don't know if that is a reality. Unfortunately, we don't get a lot of communication from the Pokemon Company all the time, and sometimes that is just the case, and there's no ulterior motive, it seems. Um, but yeah, um, I do want to encourage at this point, though, if anybody has any thoughts on the Twitch side of things, before too long, we're going to go in and hear your questions. We're going to see your input if there are any great comments, any great questions. So we will be doing that very soon here. But one thing I do want to go over, and I I did forget to mention this really quickly because I will get into Pokopia and Wind and Waves here in a moment. But I know there was brief mentioning of the Pokemon Music player, and I did want to ask Abby and anyone else. Just this isn't a planned question, but I think it's a good one. Were you like, if you were thrown off by that? Why were you thrown off by that? And does this feel like something Pokemon has ever done before? And Abby, can we start with you since that was something you were caught off guard by?
Yeah, it's just it's so fascinating to me because I don't think there's ever really been a lot of like this physical um obviously like Pokemon has done merch and all of this stuff, and like special edition consoles sort of fits into this realm, but this is very like flat out just here is like a collector's item. It's not particularly practical, like all of the every song is like this individual cartridge that you need to physically like swap um out of the player, and it's I think they were just wanting to make this a very cool, like tactile collector's item that was still functional. And I think it would be really cool if they did more stuff like this. Especially with the music is it's not exactly my thing, but I know a lot of people are very into Pokemon for in large part because of the music. And so I think doing this thing that focuses on that, bringing bringing Masuda in to like talk about it, I think was really cool. And just yeah, having this like very cool little like collector's item that still has this like neat function. It's fiddly in a way that I think is cool and adds to the thing. Like, all the cartridges like display, like having the backside that goes through the screen that actually shows like the environment in the game where the music like occurs and all of that. It's a very, very cool product and not one that I would have ever expected to see. But now that they've done it once, I'm kind of hoping that they do more stuff like this. And another thing, like I feel like given the just physical like volume of it and all of that, I thought it was pretty fairly priced. I mean, I think it was like $70, which for something that is very collectory, but still is like, this bigger thing, has a lot of parts and all of this. I think like it's a pretty good example of like something that didn't seem like super overpriced for me either. Like I think a lot of this could be.
Yeah, I think for me, it kind of, it's definitely a nostalgia move. But I think for me, the reason I bought it, in all honesty, is it would be really cool, and I haven't had like a physical music player since my phone, and I haven't had a CD player, haven't added all this stuff in quite a long time, and I don't listen to music very often. But I think the thing that really caught me on this and why I wanted to purchase it was to add to your point of it's a very collectory thing. It also felt like Pokemon was celebrating their history in a little bit of a more unique way. And for me, it would be really cool to go back to those early days on those early routes and kind of explore that in a way that does not have to have, like, I don't have to be on my phone or have my phone playing in order to do that. But Death, I know you weren't particular on this. Did you have any thoughts on this?
Just briefly, I think it's really cool. Um, it's not something that I'm personally interested in. I just am a little bit confused. I should say confused. I just find the whole 45 cartridges thing to be a bit much. But as Abby pointed out, this is a collector's item. I don't think people are going to actually use this thing. So I don't know. I guess I'm just not the target audience for it. So I like it. I think it's cool, but I think it's a little bit weird. But whatever.
I do respect it. I think that, yeah, everybody's thoughts on this are incredibly valid. Um and so before we move on, because real soon here I'll want to go to our audience, share any thoughts. Again, please feel welcome. Jeepers, words are hard today. Um but one of the things I also want to highlight before we get into Wind and Waves, which is going to be a huge discussion in of itself. I'm going to do one more modified question because we're real close to that time where we should be going to our audience. And Death, I'm going to actually start you with this question first as a transition, because I know that you and I disagree on this question, and I'm actually kind of loving the fact that we're having a playful back and forth here. But Death, who is your favorite starter that was revealed today?
The short answer is none of them. But to be clear, I'll put it this: I don't generally fall in love with the Pokemon like that. I am very much a whole package kind of deal, and I won't have any opinion on any of them until I see their entire evolution line and their stats, because I'm the stats guy. I'm the data guy. That's what I do. So, but on the whole, on the face of things, I believe I described them as looking like Fakemon.
Okay. Okay. Ghost, what about you? Who's your favorite starter so far?
Pomeranian, hands down. I love it. It's just a big ball of fluff. I love it. I want to hug it. I need plushies of that thing ASAP. But I actually
Um,
like but I actually like all of them, I actually like all of them quite a bit, honestly. But, I'm with the Pomeranian. Call me basic, I don't care. The Pomeranian is adorable. I
I'm gonna jump in on this question and then pass it to Abby so that Abby can answer this and we can go into any thoughts. But I'm gonna lie, contrary to what some people may think, I actually really love all of these. I have not memorized their names. I am working on it. But I love, oh, and I just saw information on these. So for those who haven't looked at the starters in great detail yet, we have a Bean Chick Pokemon, and obviously Puppy Pokemon, and a Water Gecko. And I'm gonna lie, I'm honestly torn between the Pomeranian because he is best boy. And I'm not gonna lie, I love the fact that with every new game there seems to be like an adorable dog involved. I think except for no, Houndour is adorable dog. Never mind, I'm not gonna say that about Legends EA. Um, but I'm gonna go. I gotta go with the Pomeranian. I might be basic as well. Oh well. But Abby, who's your favorite starter? And then after that, let's check on our chat.
All right, I am going to go contrary to, I think, both the opinions expressed here and from what I've seen, kind of the general opinions. I am a huge fan of the bird who, I'm gonna be so honest, I cannot remember their name right now. um,
Brout.
Yes, Brout. I love that guy. I mean, it should come as very little surprise given my whole online persona. Here I'm IceQ. You see my Discord profile picture, my branding everywhere else is a fake mon I designed that is a little like leafy green bird as well. Like that is extremely up my alley, and I think also this one appeals to me a lot more than even Rowlet did. Like I actually do think I prefer this over Rowlet in terms of the design of the base form. I really love it. I'm Gekwa is growing on me, but I'm not like super sold on it. And then Pombon is cute. I have some other thoughts about it that I'll get into a little later when we do some more when the wave discussion, because it's kind of a whole tangent that I'm not going to get into right now, but it is definitely my least favorite currently.
I will
I
say, before we go to people, I just wanted to highlight I saw a post earlier today um, that someone basically compared the Pokemon to other like pop culture things, and they had Brout as the Duolingo bird when
I
it's
saw a
mad
lot
at
of
you, and I
green.
think
I saw a
yeah,
lot of
and then
green on it as well.
Pompon, I'm trying to remember what that was. I think it was like dog on fire or something, which is probably the most accurate way to describe it. Um, but yeah, let's jump into that chat.
um, and I was going to say, like, the comparisons I saw were the Brout was compared to Angry Birds, Pombon was compared to Undertale, the annoying dog who's also a Pomeranian, and Gekwa was compared to a littlest pet shop critter.
Okay. Uh,
I have a friend who made Gekwa into the Geico Gecko, but blue.
oh yeah. I will say I love Gekwa's side eye in the official art. Um, it I'm not gonna lie, it gives me bossy older sibling of Sobble kind of vibes. Um, and apparently I love that. So, um, that being said, any last thoughts before we move on to our chat?
Just one final one. I think it's really interesting how both of the decade anniversary games, both Alola and and wind and waves are going to take place in tropical regions. And both of them also have a grass bird starter. I wonder if maybe that was intentional.
That's a funny. That's a
It
fun little
could.
tidbit.
So I. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Death.
No. I was like, that's a fun tidbit. That's like Bulbapedia trivia worthy, perhaps.
And just so everybody knows in the chat and in our cast, we will go back to starters here in a moment where we talk about wind and waves in greater detail. Because this is going to be a huge part of the discussion. But before we do that, I do want to check in with the chat real quick. So Abby, is there anything of note that we have in that chat?
There are two big things that I've seen. The first one, where I want to start, and then the next one I think will be a better transition into our talk about winds and waves. The first thing is they're asking if we have any thoughts on the Mystic ticket and Aurora ticket being added to the Switch ports of Fire and Leaf Green, which I think is a very good point. Like that was one of those things that we weren't kind of sure about with this port being announced. Those things that would allow us to encounter those like those events. They've done this with, obviously, what comes to mind is the Eon Flute in the Virtual Console re-release of Crystal on 3DS. So I think it is very neat that they've gone back and added those in. They actually did at least add that, given how straightforward of a port they are otherwise.
I do think that's awesome.
And then the other question I saw start here was if we had any ideas about Gen 10's gimmick mechanic. I know we were talking about this a little bit before the cast started, but it might be worth restating our thoughts here in the cast proper.
Yeah, I'll jump in here. I do want to try to avoid any leaks just in case, But I would love to see it be something, especially because Legends ZA had Mega Evolution along with Kalos, and then Paldea had the terrestrialization, which it may be a conspiracy theory, but I still say because the regions are so close, that is why we got like two stone themed things. So I would love to see something that honors Alola based on also on our previous conversations about potential connections. I, especially with like an island theme, I think it would be really cool to have something that either impacts travel throughout those islands, especially with like I think we got hints of like several different islands, including I think a false island. I could be wrong, similar to Alola. But also I think it'd be really cool to see like something that maybe also celebrates. I have no idea what this would be, but something that celebrates Pokemon and its connection to human beings in a similar way to what Alola and Z moves did, despite many people not being the biggest fan of Z moves. That's my hope.
I don't want any gimmicks.
That's fair.
We're gonna get something, but I don't want it. Just give me some good old fashioned Pokemon. I would be fine if this game had just like a really basic story. I'm tired of saving the world. I just want to have a good adventure with my Pokemon. But it is what it is. We talked about some potential, stuff we shouldn't know about that we're not going to coverage today, which sounds plausible. But as far as what I don't want gimmicks. I'm tired of gimmicks. So, in fact, I'm gonna parlay that a little bit into a question that JLog just asked about species. Is if I had to pinpoint a quote unquote gimmick, it would be like the what do you call it? The regional forms. I'm totally fine with them. I think they're pretty cool. I wouldn't mind seeing more regional forms. Do I think we're gonna get them? Honestly, I really couldn't say. There's nothing leading into this generation that tells me I think that we will or won't. It is, beach themed, and we got a whole lot of regional forms in Alola, so maybe we'll get some with the new region. But I just don't. I'm so tired of these gimmicks. I'm playing a ZA and trying to beat it without mega evolving at all. So, um, and I played all of Gen 7 without using a Z move. I played all of Gen 8 without Dynamax, and call me old because I am, but that's just how I roll. And I'm gonna parlay that again into JLog's the rest of JLog's question, which is the total species we're gonna see. Way too hard to say right now. I think given the variety we see in the trailer, I would suspect somewhere between 300 to 400 total of new forms. I'm hoping minimum 100 personally. I don't think any generation should have less than 100, or else, come on. And do I think there will be cross gen? Well, as I just said, I would like there to be, but I'm not holding my breath.
Before I jump in, Ghost, do you want to share any thoughts on all of that?
Well, to be honest, what I would like to see is although I don't want to see regional forms, what I would also like to see more like evolutions, like the Dunsparce for Regireaf, Annihilate, like more of that for like older Pokemon that haven't gotten a lot of love.
Agree.
Maybe we could see like a tropical variant of Seal and Dugong who their names reference manatees and dugong, so well dugong more specifically, so it would be nice to see like tropical variants that visually borrow more from actual dugongs, for example. I don't know, maybe Seeking could get an evolution or something, because I know that one's a really neglected Pokemon.
Please, dear God, give me an evolution for Sea King. I love that guy so much, and he sucks.
And also for Ledian, just because Ledian,
Please.
Ledian is such a meme for being incredibly weak even by early bug standards, so I feel like it should get something.
And it's sad too, because Ledian is literally based on Pulseman, which is Game Freak's original IP from the 80s, and it's just absolutely awful. It's just so bad.
What were
I
they
will.
thinking, giving it like a billion punching moves and the Iron Fist ability, and then it has a base attack of 35? Why?
Exactly.
I will say to that, I know that Archaic, our current editor in chief, has wanted something for Ariados. But it'd be really cool if we got like an Ariados variant, maybe something that stalks the jungles. I was also thinking, so I was, as I do when I'm listening to people, I also think about other things. And I was thinking, potential connections to Alola. One of the things I'd really like to see is some evolutions of Pokemon from Alola. Perhaps like maybe they migrated over. Maybe they have special evolutions based on this being their original habitat. I don't know. But I was also thinking, also probably again a conspiracy theory of sorts, but I was wondering, since Rowlet and Brout are both grass birds, I was almost wondering if maybe they're like a starter version of convergent forms. And then I was also thinking about like, depending on what they want to do. I don't know. I think it would be wild if they did a related bird to Rowlet. But I do think there's a lot of possibility for there to be connection to Alola, especially based on the point of like anniversary games being on islands.
That'd be interesting.
Was there anything else in chat, Abby, before we move on?
I don't believe so. Let me double check here.
While Abby checks that, I just want to say really quick, when we were seeing information about Legend ZA, and we saw a lot of prominent features of Arbok front and center, I was like, oh, they're going to give Arbok a mega evolution. And thankfully it didn't, because I think Arbok badly needs an actual evolution.
Oh, I have the obligatory comment that every Pokemon fan does when that's brought up, which is back in the Ruby and Sapphire anime.
Yeah, Viper,
Yeah.
oh, yada, yada.
Yeah, that I will say in a legitimate comment, I think it would be very cool to have a giant snake Pokemon evolution of Arbok, which is already giant snake, but bigger snake. I will say I am geographically challenged, and I have no idea if this is based on Southern Asia. I can't tell you what Pokemon, like what animals live there. I can't give you an informed thing, and I know Pokemon is really working hard to make sure that the Pokemon actually match the region. I do want to throw in. Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. To be fair, it's not always a one-to-one. Like, for example, I can guarantee you that New York has no wild zebras in it.
That
Yeah,
is fair. I wasn't that before they really started doubling down on that though? Because I thought it was like in the later generations when they really started doubling down on that.
I would say yes, like cautiously. I definitely think Gen 7 is where they really ramped up like local inspiration though.
I did want to also throw out there really quickly, for forums and things, I do hope that we, especially because there's a hint that we might go underwater, and I feel like this Pokemon doesn't even get brought up enough in Pokemon that need to have evolutions forms. I think it would be really cool to have a Relicanth evolution. I feel like that. I know it's like ancient Pokemon who, survive these things, but I think it'd be really cool. And honestly, we got Basculegion. I think it'd be really cool to have like some, like, go diving with one of the original dive Pokemon of a Relicanth evolution.
I like that. I also wouldn't be against just like a modern species version of Relicanth.
Yeah.
Cool guy, deserves more
Well,
attention.
one interesting possibility could be like a Relicanth is like a surviving member of the family of fish that eventually evolved into the tetrapods, which is literally every vertebrate that walks on land today. So like maybe I don't know, an evolution that kind of looks like a Tiktaalik or something like that. You guys know what a
That'd be cool.
Tiktaalik is, right?
Nope.
No.
Well, the Tiktaalik is, kind of like a super ancient, like prototype amphibian that was like among the very first, like amphibian fish thing that was among the very first invertebrates to walk on land. Like it's basically the original link between vertebrates and land, more or less, or at least that at least that's the consensus, because pretty much everything about fossils and evolutions is constantly changing because new discoveries keep being made and stuff.
First of all, I admire your knowledge. I'm not gonna lie, some of those words didn't even make sense to my brain. But that would be very cool. I did want to highlight, and then unless there's anything else on chat, I did want to throw it out there. It would be really cool to see another jellyfish Pokemon. Maybe like a convergent form of not Octillery, the Gen 5 one, Frillish and Lilligant. No, not Lilligant. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Listen, and Jellicent. Unfortunately,
Thank
I
you.
think we did see those guys on the trailer itself in their normal forms, so I think maybe not them, but possibly maybe I don't know, maybe Lilip and Cradily. Although they're honestly more sea anemones than they are jellyfish, but like, and I guess they could also make another one for Tentacool and Tentacruel, but since they already got, the Toadstool and Toadstool forms, it might not be that likely.
All I
That's
know is that
quite
if we get a jellyfish, can we not have it be just a specially defensive water type? Can we get some other stats going on? Sorry, I'm the stats guy, and I'm just like Tentacruel, Jellicent. They're both just specially defensive, mediocre everywhere else. Just saying. Anyway.
Abby, I did want to check in one last time. Is there anything else? I know we rambled for a bit there.
I don't believe so. I think we touched on everything.
Awesome. And I know we chatted a little bit about merch. And we talked about the Game Boy music player. But I know, Death, you really wanted to talk about merch because there's some really cool stuff. And to be fair, there was several bits of merch that I think were not dropped in the trailer, well, the presents that were dropped on the website. But Death, I wanted to jump to you because I know you wanted to talk on this, and I wanted to give you free roam to share what you would like and how you would like it.
Yeah, really, I can make this pretty quick. Is when I was so Caps was streaming here on Bulbagarden earlier today, and I had nothing going on, so I joined him and we did some bantering. And somebody messaged was like, "Hey, they just dropped a bunch of merch for the 30th anniversary on the website." So we checked it out live on stream. So you can actually go check out the VOD for our live reaction. But the short answer is that there's two kinds of 30th anniversary merch. You've got the Pikachu logo with the 3 and 0 on the cheeks, and then you got this really cool black and gold style logo that features Gengar fighting Nidorino, excuse me, from the beginning of the games, Red and Blue. And all of those Gengar Nidorino things, they're pretty cool. They even there's a hat where it has this really cool fade going on. But then you get to the 30th anniversary stuff with like the Pikachu face, and it's really, really bland. It's usually just sweatshirt with a little sticker on it. It's crazy the dynamic, and I think it's a little bit kind of frustrating that if anybody wanted a 30th anniversary merch, if anybody, because the Pikachu face was already available, I believe, and it's just so bland compared to the stuff they released today, and yet they didn't talk about it. Like, I haven't seen any information about these very cool designs, and we got nothing. Like, did you guys even know about this?
So I checked the website immediately after because I wanted to get the music player. And so a little behind the scenes for me, I got the hat and stuff because I was like, it's Pokemon 30th anniversary, and I think it was released like a week ago, if not more. And yeah, it's Pikachu sticker that is shiny. It's actually funny because I was teaching a class and I showed my students that, and then like a third party Pokemon shirt that another organization did, I assume with rights. And they were like, "Oh, the Pikachu one's cool, but that other one looks really good." And for context, the other one is like mega shiny Absol with like the moon in the background, with this beautiful artwork. But I will say the Nidorino and Gengar one is so much better, and I was able to snag up some of that as well. And to put this quickly and a little bluntly, it did feel very Pokemon. And it also felt kind of like, going back to the marketing strategy on things, very strange. Especially because I didn't even notice any websites mentioning it until I went on the site, which was interesting to me. All right. Well, it seems like we're good on that. I do have to ask though, Death, were you able to snag any of the items?
No, but I didn't get the chance. I finished up streaming with Caps, and I've been out of the house all day, and I literally jumped back in the house, like 30 minutes before this podcast. So,
Gotcha. I will say, so when I showed just for everybody hoping to get Pokemon merch, if you didn't know about it, about a week ago, I showed my students the Pokemon shirt and tried to show it on the website. It had a 4-hour long wait just to get to the website. So full warning for anybody out there. And that was before Pokemon Day. I don't know if it's better now. They are also requesting I am not a robot verification. But my hope is for anybody out there who wants to get stuff, you do not have a 4 or more hour wait just to get to the website.
also shout out to Norman for the 45 bits. Thanks, Norman.
Yes, thank you very much. All right. With that, we're going to get into something. I'm going to work also to keep us. I know we've had this great conversation. I want to be considerate of all my ADHD owls out there who are probably getting a little fidgety. We're going to try to keep this at 2 hours max. And with a lot of our topics already covered, with so much more that we can get into in Wind and Waves and Pokopia, I think that is very doable. But I want to talk about Pokopia first because I imagine this is going to be way less time consuming. And it isn't a question I had planned, but Ghost, you mentioned a new regional form. And I just wanted to touch on this. What were your thoughts of the reveal of Rotom music, CD form or whatever it's called? Were you expecting that at all?
I mean, nope, not really. I knew I was expecting at least a form to be revealed, but I didn't really have any hopes, theories, or expectations about which Pokemon. I just knew which one. But Rotom is one that makes sense, and I do have to say that I feel like this form definitively confirms that all the forms that we see in Pokopia are going to be available in other games in the future. Because I don't see why they wouldn't at this point.
I think that's a really valid point. I have seen people speculate that Pokopia might be the transition to Gen 10, kind of like Legend ZA had with some of the forms before Gen 9. So I'm really interested in that. But I'm going to step back, let anybody share what you would like to on the cast.
Yeah, I also wanted to say that I'm really curious as to what type it's going to be. Because this one's related to sound. To sound, I wonder. This could very well be the first sound type or something.
Ooh, I like that.
Like that would be it's either gonna be that or just a normal type, because sound so far has been mostly associated with normal for the most part. Although there are definitely sound moves that have no connection to it, but it's I feel like either. But other than that, I have no idea what type it could be.
I will say really quickly, because you sparked a thought, a sound type in a region based on islands could be a really cool way to incorporate the scenery and diving underwater.
I'm going to touch back on that when we get back to Winds and Waves.
Perfect. But Death, did you want to share anything on Rotom, just so I make sure I ask?
Yeah, just really quick. And actually, literally, Ghost's comment actually completely changed my viewpoint. So my original viewpoint was, I'm tired of seeing Rotom, to be honest. I like Rotom as a Pokemon, but it's just everything is becoming Rotom. And I feel like Rotom is being diluted as a Pokemon to the point where it's less of a Pokemon and more just like an appliance. So I would just like, can we get a different Pokemon to be stuff, please? However, if they make this new stereo Rotom into the first sound, or like if it's gonna be a sound type, that tracks because it's almost like Rotom is almost like a lesser Eevee at this point, where it has all the different types added to it. So I think that would be cool. Otherwise, the only thing I have to say is I want them to do something else besides put Rotom and everything. That's all.
Yeah,
I think that.
I just
Please
want
feel
to
free.
bounce off that. I just think it is neat. I like that they kind of have all these things to do with Rotom. Like, my big thing is I almost wish I wish that more of these, if they're gonna do all these forms, it feels like a real missed opportunity not to make them actual forms that you can use. You know, I get for like, oh, the phone and the decks, like that makes sense that those aren't usable in battle, but I think especially with like, yeah, the stereo Rotom, like I see no reason that seems just as feasible for a battleable form as, like, you know, a lawnmower. um I don't see why they couldn't make that beatable. Honestly, just the whole concept of the Rotom phone in general is very strange to me because I don't know what Rotom being in the phone does. In like Alola, when Rotom was in the Pokedex, like, oh, he at least like talked to you and had like a little bit of this personality, but then in Scarlet and Violet, it seems like the extent of the usefulness of Rotom being in the phone is the fact that it can float midair. And it just feels like I don't understand why Rotom is there, but with the Dex and I think with the stereo, I think it gives more of a reason for Rotom to be inhabiting this stuff, which I think is more interesting than something like the phone.
No, I think that's really valid, and it's actually interesting that you bring that up because I think, and I know, at least I think Ghost knows more about the Alola anime than I do, but there is an episode, I believe, in the Alola anime where Rotom gets kicked out of the Pokédex. Um, and there's like, I think like washer Rotom, like there's laundry washer Rotom. And I think there's like a few other shown that aren't confirmed to be like Rotom forms, except I think they call them a Rotom something something form. Um, Ghost, am I right that this is something you would know?
Um, to be honest, I don't actually remember that. To be honest, I was pretty sure I'd watched all of the Alola anime, but I guess not. So yeah, I guess I need to refresh. I have to rewatch it then because I do not remember that. And that sounds so memorable. Like I'm pretty sure I would have if I would have like if that had happened. So yeah, I'm gonna have to get back to you on that one because I do not remember. I may have accidentally skipped that episode.
I could also be completely making this up. I'm actually going to step back because this is something I want to research on Cast Live. But I know we probably have thoughts on Pokopia, and I want to step back a little bit, have things be a little less structured, and I'd love this to kind of be a brief roundtable discussion on any thoughts on Pokopia that have not been shared so far. Um, Before we get in the wind and waves at the end of the cast today, does anyone want to step in, start sharing your thoughts before, well, I do a little bit of research on this?
I'll speak first because I don't have a lot to say on it. It looks like a charming little game. A lot of the stuff that I've seen, I have actually liked more and more where they're going with it. So I think there's promise or the potential for a pretty fun little game that could potentially be kind of chill. It looks almost like a cross between like Minecraft and Animal Crossing, to put it very poorly. um, but from me personally, I'm not really into those sort of slice of life games, so still not really something that I'm interested in, but I do hope that some people will find some enjoyment in it. I will also mention really quickly that I really, really, really don't like how it's digital only. So I, come on, guy, come on, Game Freak. That's all.
Does anybody else want to jump in?
Yeah, I'll hop in a second. So this is very much my speed of game. I am definitely gonna be playing it day one. I will likely be swapping over to that as my primary stream series here actually. I am like very, very excited for this. It's really fascinating to me the way that they're marketing this. I was talking about this with some people earlier, and this feels like the first spin-off game in like a long time, arguably ever, that they're really putting this much emphasis on. I mean, the last major spin-off that I can think of is like new Pokemon Snap, and like, yeah, there was a marketing push around that, obviously, but it was not to the level of this. Like, I think they're really banking on this to be a big deal. I think they're right. I think it will be. But it's just interesting that they seem like so confident in this as a product. And frankly, every trailer we get, especially with like the treehouse and then the overview stuff today, like they really just showed that there's a lot of effort and just scope that is going into this game. I think it's going to be um, kind of a big deal, which I think is very cool because there's not really been a spin-off that I think has made a big splash in the wider gaming audience beyond just the core Pokemon fan base. So I think that'll be very cool if it works out.
And Ghost, do you have any thoughts before I share my research?
No. I think I already covered everything I wanted to say about the Pokopia reveal. And everything else that could have been said has already been said, I think.
So, because I find this fascinating, which, by the way, if those listening have not recently checked out the Bulbapedia stuff, please do. Our sites are very informative. Part of the reason I say that is I was not making things up. So there is an episode, and there is a breakdown, wonderful breakdown at the Bulbapedia.Bulbagarden website, which is for the episode Rotom Can't Stop the Form Change. And I know this is not the most prevalent thing, but I want to prove that I'm not crazy. So in this episode, the Rotom leaves the Pokedex. I haven't read through the whole thing, but there are two things of note. One of them, it goes into a streetlight. I can't find anything that says that creates a new form. But more importantly, Rotom bonds with the Pokemon Center and becomes apparently the Rotom Pokemon Center. So interesting that's a thing. I know it's not like quote unquote canon to the games, but it does give hint that potentially they were hinting or had the foresight to be like, hey, future Rotom forms. I highly recommend checking out this article on Bulbapedia because it is broken down in great detail, as the people always do here. And I don't have enough time to read through everything, but I do know it also went through all of its forms, including Frost form. That being said, as we have shared all we have wanted on Pokopia, I did want to throw out something, and I do want to highlight from what I've heard, people's reception to Pokopia has been very positive. You always got to take things with a grain of salt and what is shared. But from what I've heard, this is going to be, like was said, a very special, very fun game. It is really cool. I just want to also contribute this. I think it's really cool that Pokemon is moving, and I say this almost every cast, in very unique, very different ways. And I love to see that within Pokemon as someone who's been playing since the late 90s. But now, for those of us who are incredibly eager, we are going to jump into our conversation on Wind and Waves. And just for a heads up for those who've been in the audience, why aren't you talking about this more? Why are you talking about this mobile game or this? We will be giving Wind and Waves a lot of attention over the next year. There will be casts, there will be reactions, there will be discussions, all kinds of stuff, very similar to what we did with Legends ZA. And you better believe we're going to be breaking down Wind and Waves in its entirety as a game as well. It's going to be very awesome. But as we go into Wind and Waves, I know we touched on starters a little bit, and we can get into that here in a moment. But I did want to also really highlight, and I know Abby and I believe Abby and Butterfly Gun really wanted to get into this, or I could be reading things long. It's wrong. It's been a long day. But does anyone want to share your overall thoughts on the seemingly substantial increase on graphical quality from Scarlet and Violet to where we are now with Wind and Waves?
Yeah, I'll start us off here. I am really, really pleasantly surprised by how these games look. It's not the most technically impressive. I wouldn't say it's like, it's not going to be like one of Switch 2's best looking games or anything like that. But it does truly look, to me at least, it does truly look next gen. It definitely seems like it's really taking advantage of that Switch 2 hardware. And I'm really happy about that. I mean, I definitely think if Legends ZA even had been developed fully with Switch 2 in mind and not having to be kind of cut down for a Switch 1 release, I think that even could have been a lot more graphically detailed and interesting. And so the fact that they're making it a Switch 2 exclusive, really making full use of that hardware, is super exciting. But then also, I think it just has a much stronger art direction overall. Paldea was a very kind of uninteresting region, I feel like, in terms of its landscapes and environments. The most like densely naturey areas are like the like yellow forest on the north end of the map and like Tag Tree Thicket, and both of those are like neat enough, but still feel very video gamey, for lack of a better word. While basically every environment we've seen from Winds and Waves in this trailer seems so much more dense and full of life and just interesting. It seems like it's going to be, even if the graphics turn out to be, less impressive in game than they seem now, I think just the stronger art direction and better level of detail and all of that stuff, I think are going to make it seem a lot more polished. And especially given that they have, at minimum, another full year to work on this, and it already looks this good. I mean, when we learned that we had to wait a full extra year for ZA, we didn't see any in-game footage. And the fact that we saw something and it looks this good already, and we have another full year of development time, at least, potentially closer to 2 years if it ends up being a holiday release next year. I'm very much looking forward to seeing how this looks and hoping that this kind of can put a slight end to the constant graphical critiques of these games, which, for the record, are valid. It's just a little exhausting.
Oh, damn, you left me with nothing to say because you said everything I wanted to already. Oh, God.
I mean, I just two quick things on that is the how can I start this? My brain just went in two different directions. The graphical issues of previous games, I think, are valid and deserving to be pointed out, because I think that some of the stuff was, in my opinion, just totally unacceptable that it was released. I don't think we have to talk about that because I think we all know about it. But something I do want to piggyback was Abby's comment about the region of Paldea being kind of bland. Um, and there's two things that I want to point out. The first is that I really want them to go back to having buildings we can enter. It sounds like such a silly thing, but it just doesn't feel like a Pokemon game if I can't walk into somebody's house and have them tell me how much they like their Pidgey. I just need that. But more to the point is the cities in Paldea just don't have any presence because of that. They just feel like they're just plotted on the land. You roll in, you fight the gym leader, and you roll out. Maybe that's just me. That's how I felt. I just didn't really feel a connection to any of these locations. Um, and I'm hoping we get that. I did see in the Winds and Waves trailer that there are the open air Pokemon Center and Pokemarts, which is slightly concerning. I'm not too I don't have too much of a problem with them, but if that's going to be how it is, where we're just not going to be going into stuff, I don't know. I just don't feel like the towns and cities are really good enough if we can't explore them in intricate detail. And in regards to the actual environment itself, something that Caps and I are both big fans of is the Xenoblade series, which has kind of been have the finger pointed at when people say these Pokemon games look kind of bland. How come Xenoblade looks so good? And honestly, Caps and I both agree. Is the Xenoblade games, which are made for the Switch, the environments just look 10 times better. So these games, they definitely look like they're taking some steps in the right direction, and I'm not sold just yet on the visuals. I think they look like a huge step in the right direction, but I want to see more before I say that yes, this is the visual revolution that we want. Does the game run at 30 FPS or 60 FPS? Do I have pop in? Do I have bad frame rates? I don't know. But so far, so good. And I'll end off with saying I think that the models could use a little bit more polish. I feel like I'm not going to point out right now. I'm not going to be that kind of guy, but if you look at the trailer, some of the models do seem a little. The shading's weird or something like that. So again, I'm not ready to criticize them just yet on that. I like where they're going. I want to see more, basically.
And just to jump into that, there was something I was thinking about while you were saying that, and I know this is kind of an overplayed aspect of Legend ZA, but I will say, because Legend ZA had some of them going on roofs and things, I felt like that was a huge improvement. Like if I had gone through Lumios and I had rough buildings, I do think that like they utilized the map well with what they had. I do think they could have improved it because Death, I think you Archaic and I have been saying for the longest time we need to go back into buildings and we need that to be a thing. I think what's going to happen, and I think this is going to be a big part of the game, is they're going to put a lot of focus into the exploration of these islands. And this is something people have wanted for a long time. I think if it works well, we could have a really good and important dive system, which I think would open up the map of this game massively and give us a lot. And as frustrated as I am that you can't go into the buildings of Lumios and Legends EA, I am really a big fan of how they incorporated the map and how they made it work. And I like the creative choices that they took in that. I know a lot of people don't, but I think it's valid to say that. And if I get the opportunity to go through an entire island and explore the biomes and the water, I don't think I'm going to care as much about the buildings. That being said, my biggest complaint, and Death, you said it, with Scarlet and Violet, was the towns were purposeless. They had gyms, and that was it. And I cannot stand that. We've all gone on record, we've gone on record and said, if we ever get an Italian region, we need to have the ability to go into buildings to see frescoes and things. So I'm not going to add any more than that. I do know that I saw a note. Hopefully our audio is better. Do we need to pause for a second to test that, Abby?
Seems like it is better on everyone's end.
Perfect. All right. Thank you for taking care of that. I do want to move into the second question here about wind and waves. And as we go, yeah. And just so everybody knows, we won't be going too much longer. We might hit that 2-hour mark, but we'll figure it out. And we actually touched on quite a bit of this, but I did want to just throw out there, because I got to say my piece. How do we feel about the nature theming of these titles? And if I stole anybody's comments, I apologize. But does anyone want to share their thoughts on the seeming multiple environments? And do you think this could be the largest region to date?
I mean, I think right away, the biggest thing for me is the return of underwater routes and dive. I think that on its own is going to make everywhere feel so much more impactful and like expansive. I do hope that they manage to strike a better balance with variety, because I know that's a big issue with Hoenn. As much as I love that region, the dive routes all kind of feel the same, have very similar stuff going on. It doesn't seem like there's just not much to do in them. So I hope that there's a decent variety and reasons to go underwater, especially because it is gorgeous. Like that is some of my favorite aesthetics in the whole game are those underwater scenes. But yeah, I just really hope that there's more stuff to find than in Paldea. Because my biggest issue with that game, even ignoring the fact that the landscapes are like kind of plain, the region isn't super interesting. I just hope that there's like things, and there's a reason to explore. I remember finally making it up towards like Airy in Scarlet and Violet and into that like bamboo forest, and then there were like no unique or interesting Pokemon even in that area, which seemed like such a cool area, and there was so much potential for unique species in there, and then they just didn't do it. And a lot of things like that. So I hope there's just more incentive to explore and all of that, because a bigger region without anything to find is actually that is worse to me than a smaller region that is more densely packed and more interesting. So I hope that they can kind of strike a balance. They don't just go for scale to make it big. They have a reason for utilizing all that space.
That's a really good point. That bamboo forest, I remember the same thing. I was like, "Oh, that looks cool. I got to check that out." And then you get up there and I go, "Oh, okay. There's just more toad scroll up here. That's pretty much all you get." So, I agree. If they want to have a huge region, you got to give me something to do. I will say that as I don't want to say Hoenn hater. I don't hate Hoenn, but I've never been a big fan of it. The surfing and diving was something I really didn't like, but they did some nice improvements in Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire. I think it made the surfing and diving routes a lot more satisfying. So hopefully they can elaborate on that. And the first thing I thought of when I saw the trailer was the new Pokemon Snap and how pretty it was when we went underwater and you see all the Pokemon, swimming around. I want that experience in this game, and it kind of looks like we might be on the track of that. So that's kind of my hope with the underwater section. I think above water, hell, give me the same thing. Just give me new Pokemon Snap that we can go and explore as an actual Pokemon game, and I think we'll be on the right track with that.
Just to throw my own thoughts in on this really quickly, I was actually thinking about this while we were all sharing. And now that I'm thinking about the trajectory of the last several games we got, we had Legends Arceus with new regional forms. I can't remember if new Pokemon Snap was before or after that, and we had this new area to explore with immersive Pokemon. Then we had Gen 9 with open world. After that, we had, Legends ZA. And as I've been thinking about this, I'm almost wondering if they have been testing out some of the features on Gen 10 in previous games and thoughts that they may have had to see how they could be worked and why. And how people would respond to them. Because, and again, could be a conspiracy theory, but it seems like a natural thing to do when you have the big reveal for the 30th anniversary. Am I alone in that, or does that also seem like it's tracking very well in a similar sense?
I didn't get that vibe personally, but I'm not saying you're wrong by any means. I feel like they've been kind of just doing their thing. Every generation seems to have very isolated mechanics and choices. But if they have been secretly playing around with some Gen 10 stuff, then that's pretty cool. I don't. I just wanted to reply that I didn't personally get that vibe.
Ghoster Abby, do you agree with me? Does that seem weird, or are there any other thoughts you want to share?
I mean, I think they're testing the waters in as much as all kind of game dev cycles back into itself. I don't know that they necessarily like designed the underwater areas in New Snap to like practice for uh Winds and Waves, in part because Game Freak didn't develop those games, but also just generally, I find it hard to believe they would be thinking that far ahead. I do think that it's possible that there's, they saw, oh, these areas were really nice and interesting in New Snap. We were able to do something more interesting than we were able to do underwater previously, and that kind of inspired them for this game. But I don't know that necessarily it was like a direct, purposeful kind of adaptation in that way.
Ghost, do you have any comments on the geography of Winds and Waves, or any thoughts you want to answer before we get into the starter convo?
Mm, mm, Well, not really. Like, obviously, it's going to be like a super, like a super tropical heavy region, and yeah, I already said that I think it's very interesting that it and Alola, seem very similar, and I wonder if them both being, anniversary generations, has any reason for that, like if if it was a purposeful connection. But yeah, I think everyone's already said pretty much everything that needs to be said.
Perfect. So, the last question that I just want to get into really quickly here. We've already shared which are our favorite starters. We have shared quite a bit about our opinions of them, but I want to get into one last question about starters. And just because I wanted to, oh my gosh, words, gotta love it. After 2 hours, they get hard. Um, so my last question for everybody is um, my question for you, sorry, I got a message and got distracted. My question is, what do you think is the best design starter for their region out of the three that have been revealed? So I think it's Pombon, Grout, and Gwekwa. I will have a hard time saying that every time I say it. And I'm actually going to start with Death because I know You do not have a preference over any of them, but do you have any opinion on which matches what you've seen so far or is best designed?
Um, Kinda, sorta. I can definitely say, and to be clear, I just want to be clear, is I don't hate these guys. I just didn't really fall in love with them. So, just to be clear, I'm not trying to be an unapologetic hater over here. But first things first, I would say that Pombon is probably the least region specific. It's just a Pomeranian, and again, Pombon is a very good boy, but I would have to learn a little bit more about Brout or Brout, and Gekwa, but I think Gekwa would probably be the one I would say fits the bill the most, being that it appears to be an aquatic lizard, and we are very much in a what appears to be a tropical island region. But birds are very, very important and popular or in tropical island regions. So maybe once I learn more about Brout, maybe I will think it's that one. Um, that's that's kind of what I'm thinking so far. It really comes back to my original thing is I want to learn more about these guys before I really get into the meat and potatoes of them.
Same question. What do you think? Which starter? Now I know we both love Pombon, but which starter do you think best matches the region?
Yeah, that's the thing. That's the thing. I feel like to really answer that question, we would have to look at the entire evolutionary lines of all of them, to get, first, because all first stage starters, the entire thing about them is that they grow up into their assigned roles. So like right now, like we have a little bird, a little gecko, and a little puppy. So like it's very possible that, for example, Pombom could evolve to resemble a breed that is more typical of the region, for example, or maybe even some kind of mythical creature. I know I've seen speculation of these, and same for all the others. But yeah, that's generally my take. Like for now, for now, I feel like maybe Brout is the best fit. I don't know why. It just like gives me the vibe that it's very fitting. But yeah, I feel like we first would need to we'd need to know what the rest of the lines look like.
That is also very valid and fair. You know what I was thinking? Um, Everybody's giving me such awesome thoughts. So the only thing I'm gonna be biased, just because it hasn't been said yet. And I'm gonna go with Pombon. I'm not biased. I'm not throwing love for the best boy because he's the best boy. Um, but I was thinking. So when I was looking at him, I didn't realize, and I realized his fur. It almost looks like the sun. Um, and because of that, I feel like he would be a very just how like wind works with fire and things, and yeah, again, totally grasping at straws and coping here, but I'm gonna say Pombon, partly because I've been vastly wrong with dogs fitting into previous regions. Um, but with that, Abby, I'm gonna pass this over to you. What do you think best matches the region so far? And then I'd like to do any last check-ins with chat, and then we can do our outro.
All right. So I my favorite, as we discussed, is definitely Brout. But I do think that Gekwa is probably the best fit for this region. Just being that aquatic, gecko, it feels very tropical, and especially if this ends up being something like Southeast Asia, it definitely feels like it kind of fits that sort of energy in my mind. I do think Brout is also could fit very well. It kind of depends where the evolutions take it, because it is just kind of a relatively generic bird right now, an adorable bird, but not particularly location specific as of right now. I would say I kind of feel like Pombon actively does not fit the region. Um, I just generally have kind of an issue with dog Pokemon. I think a lot of them are just I think a lot it's almost too easy to design because people will just see a cute dog and love it instantly, which is fair and all, but I feel like it kind of limits it doesn't always lead to the most creative or interesting designs because they know they can just make a cute dog and people will like it basically no matter what. Um Case in point, I do want to bring up the cassette beast shaped elephant in the room um of Pombon, and then the basically the mascot of cassette beast Pom Bomb, which is also a fire type Pomeranian um that looks very very similar. This is not to obviously accuse Pokemon of like copying or anything. More so, I just think it's kind of an indication that it's not a particularly unique or interesting design. I think there are a lot of really cool Fakemon, but for the most part, Pokemon is pretty good about kind of coming up with these interesting, unique designs that feel very distinct. There is sort of a Pokemon feel. And I think even if they're new right now, so they might not necessarily feel like that. I think with time we will kind of see that these do feel very Pokemon-y, but Pombon does feel like very generic in a way that doesn't really click with me. It's cute. It's certainly cute. I'm not going to deny that, but it just doesn't feel like an interesting design for me in the way that I would want.
Well, I made my choice knowing the outcome. um, but Abby, is there anything of note that we should highlight before we're done today?
I don't believe so. I think we've kind of hit everything here. I think
Can I
we
just
are
say
good.
something real quick?
By all means.
Because we were talking about Pombon, and we all kind of seem to be on the page roughly that Pombon is kind of the odd one out. I looked it up. Pomeranians are from Germany and Poland. That's where the breed is from. So I'm sure that they're popular worldwide, but I think it kind of hammers home the fact that while Pombon is a very good boy, it's not exactly like the definitive tropical island dog.
Well, that being said, now I have to do some research myself. Okay, so I just really quickly, I did a quick Google search. Pomeranians are highly popular and important in Southeast Asia, particularly within the region's urban pet culture and rapidly growing pet industry. They are a favored breed for apartment living due to their small size and are frequently highlighted in the booming. Wait, where was it? Yeah, so apparently, while they may not seemingly make sense, they also incorporate pet fashion trends. They are, there has also been a high demand that has led to illegal smuggling of Pomeranians. Maybe hint, hint, maybe evil team. So who knows? Maybe that's why they picked it. Now, keep in mind, this is Google. Gotta take it with a grain of salt. But if that is the case, that could be the inspiration behind Pombog.
Good.
And why it's so furry. That being said, on my actually moment, where apparently I needed to justify my choice, what I'm gonna do is have us move in to our outro questions. What I'm gonna do, as always, is I'll let Ghost and Death go first, then I'll outro myself. We'll let Abby, as the producer today, to do one last final farewell. But I do want to throw out our question, and Death, I know you have the really awesome question about what is a hypothetical type or variation, but I want to save that for a future cast because I'm sure we're probably going to get news before too long, and I think that's perfect for a future cast that I'm sure we would love to have you on. But what I'd like to end today with, and I'm going to start with Ghost, then move to Death, and then go to Abby after I outro myself, is, and I'd like you to try to answer this in a minute. So, Ghost, let us know who you are, what you do, where people can find you, and do you feel that the presentation adequately celebrated the 30th anniversary of Pokemon? And I'm going to have us try to do this in 1 minute.
Okay. Well, as we said in the intro, I'm Ghost Diplocalus. I am a super moderator in Bulbagarden. You can find me there. You can also find me on Discord, Twitter, on DeviantArt, and on Tumblr under the name handle Butterflygun. Oh, and also on Blue Sky there too, under the handle Butterflygun. And as for did it celebrate? I think it did, honestly. Like there was like a lot of, I felt like there was a lot of joy in the presentation, joy, celebration feel for it. And I definitely also think it's not going to be the last thing they do to celebrate. Like it certainly isn't.
Absolutely, I 100% agree with you. Death, can you remind everybody who you are, what you do, where they can find you, and do you feel like this was a good celebration of Pokemon's 30th anniversary?
Hello, I am the name raider. I rate the names. Wait, no, it's a different guy. I'm MAGNEDETH. I'm the former editor-in-chief of Bulbapedia, and you can find me on Blue Sky at MAGNEDETH. You can also find me here on Twitch at MAGNEDETH. I stream Tuesday, Wednesday, and sometimes Thursday on my personal channel. I would like to get back here on the Bulbagarden channel. I just need to find an opportunity. Spoiler alert, it's probably going to be Pokemon Mystery Dungeon because I've never played Pokemon Mystery Dungeon before. So hopefully I'll get around to that. Do I think the presents accurately represented Pokemon for its 30th? Eh. Yes, but I feel like it still could have gone a little bit more. But also, the trailer for Winds and Waves, I think, was really good. And I think the little pre-trailer where they went through the history of the series was pretty good. So I'll give them that. And I also think that Ghost is right in that there will be more to come. So let's see what happens.
Absolutely. I'll do my quick outro. I'll make sure to let everybody know about some exciting things happening after Abby goes as well. But a reminder, I am Rhodehawk. I am your humble host. Sometimes I'm not as humble as I could be, but I am proud nonetheless. As always, you can find me in Bulbacast. I do want to send out a special thank you to everybody who has been here on either both the predictions cast and the reactions cast, or even just one or the other. We truly value you. This is going to be an exciting year, not just for Pokemon, but for the Bulbacast as well. You can always find me here, but you can also find me as I go mildly crazy, scouting different sync pairs in Pokemon Masters on our YouTube channel. And additionally, for those of us on YouTube watching this as we port it over, we would love to know your thoughts. If you agree with us, disagree with us. But before I do one last little bit of information, I'm going to pass it over to Abby, who has stepped up and stepped in to help us out today. And I'd like to ask the same question. Abby, who are you? What do you do? Where can people find you? And do you think that this Pokemon Presents captured the magic of the Pokemon 30th anniversary?
Yeah, I'm Abby. I am, again, one of our Discord moderators over on the Discord and one of the streamers right here on this Twitch channel. I do think that this was a pretty good celebration of Pokemon's 30th anniversary. I do think they maybe could have done just a little something more. I don't know what that would have been necessarily, but I think it was missing just like one thing that really tipped it over the edge, because as cool as Winds and Waves looks, I don't necessarily see it as a particularly celebratory anniversary type title. Maybe it doesn't need to be, but I think that was kind of what I was envisioning before we saw this trailer today. So I think that maybe could have pushed over the edge, but I think we still had a lot of really cool stuff that kind of tied it all up and did manage to celebrate the anniversary quite well.
With that, thank you to our cast. Once again, thank you to those listening. I did want to say we have some really awesome stuff happening on the Bulbagarden Twitch channel over this weekend. I do also want to highlight that the Bulbacast will be returning. There are some really exciting changes that I'm not going to go into yet. But with that, we do have some exciting projects. Those of you who know me know I love Pokemon Masters. I haven't said that about 1,000 times today. It's my hope to do a anniversary, a 6.5 anniversary for Pokemon Masters. We also have some really exciting plans coming up for future topics regarding the 30th anniversary. As we outro out, I do want to thank everybody one last time and say this was a fantastic conversation. I did get a note though. Death, what is one last thing you would like to say?
I mentioned that I'm streaming on Bulbagarden eventually tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern, 3 UTC. We're going to start the whole thing. And as soon as I said that, I think Abby was actually already going to plug this. But yeah, we're doing it tomorrow, all the regions. And I'm starting it with Pokemon Yellow.
Yeah, so yeah, like Death said, he is starting us off with our big anniversary marathon stream. We'll be going through all 9 of the main generations, playing one of their flagship titles, again starting with Death at 10 a.m. Eastern. I will be following that right up at 1:30 Eastern with Gen 2, and we will keep going all the way through Monday, ending off with Scarlet and Violet with Caps. There's lots of good stuff in there. Events in the Discord, I believe it is also in our schedule here on Twitch, so definitely check it out. I think it's going to be a really good time. I'm very, very excited for this event. I think it's going to be a really neat way to celebrate where the Pokemon series has taken us so far, especially as we look forward to this new chapter with Gen 10.
And I did forget to say one thing. I do, for those of you who listen regularly, I do wish you will send some love to Caps when Caps returns. Again, Caps is just very busy. This is not going to be the new normal. But that being said, one last thing I would like to say, everybody, and I said this similarly on the last cast. I hope that this 30th anniversary lives up to your expectations, but more importantly, that it is one of joy and happiness, and you get to celebrate these 30 years however you choose with Pokemon. That being said, everybody, I'm going to let you go. We're going to let everybody go, and thank you one more time.